Oh, look at this beauty. cRPG is everything Mount and Blade Bannerlord's multiplayer should have been. Is my own personal opinion, but allow me to explain. First, what is cRPG? cRPG is a multiplayer Bannerlord mod. Crazy, I know, it's almost like you clicked on the video, that gives the player nearly complete freedom of choice in the stats and loadout of their character. Terrify your foes with a two-handed maul, or maybe a shovel, as you dress from head to toe in the best armor money can buy. Or a pretty dress, the choice is yours. The mod also reintroduces the stat system from Mount and Blade Warband and applies it to your character by linking with your Steam account, so that you can choose to make your character as fast or strong as you want with whatever weapon proficiency suits your playstyle. From weapons and armors, even to individual stats, this Bannerlord mod makes multiplayer an experience that greatly appeals to both hardcore competitive sweats and casual single-playing Rhagea Simps alike. But to best explain why I think this mod is such an improvement over the normal multiplayer experience, we first need to set a baseline understanding of what native multiplayer does well and what it does not. Bannerlord multiplayer is, in its simplest terms, a refinement of the Warband multiplayer experience. It takes the basic mechanics of Warband and adjusts certain aspects to give the gameplay a fresh feel, replacing the snappy but often janky combat mechanics of Warband with a much more fluid but sometimes slower experience. Tailworlds has had a strong focus on developing a more competitive multiplayer. Now, I understand why the focus went that way. It makes sense when you think about the mechanics of the game being fairly easy to learn, but difficult to master. Block up is mouse up right click, swing up is mouse up left click. Easy enough, but there's so much more to it than that. There's spacing, weapon reach, weapon speeds, angle of attack, damage type, player speed, player armor, where your weapon lands. Your reach even changes based on your attack direction. There's holding, feinting, footwork, and that's just dueling. Competitive battle is all of that multiplied exponentially by however many players are on the server, as now you need to account for positioning of both enemies and allies, your surroundings, and general teamwork. So there's a lot to Mount and Blade, and it obviously makes sense to have a competitive multiplayer aspect. There's no other experience like it. However, the issue I take with the current gameplay philosophy is that when you try to dial in on competition above all else, you lose aspects of the game that can be very fun. Not everyone wants to account for Edgelord 69's positioning as you try to set up a crossfire with two other allied archers to make the most of a kill zone. A lot of people don't want to play multiplayer that causes them more stress than real life. This isn't League.
He puts his shit down, he doesn't even react to them fucking coming!
And while there are less competitive game modes like Siege and especially TDM, the rest of the multiplayer design philosophy still seems to prioritize competition above all else. Standardized equipments and classes, kind of boring, not gonna lie. Access to set classes based on how well you're playing. A punishment if you're bad at the game. Both make sense if you want a competitive multiplayer, but for the casual or new player, there's no incentive to play, as you only get to experience what the game has to offer if you're already doing well. Tailworlds has tried to mitigate this standardization with predetermined buffs or loadout changes, but ultimately the new system will always provide the player with less choice than Warbands. But is all that necessarily a bad thing? What's wrong with focusing on a competitive multiplayer experience? Nothing at all. I actually love it. But that doesn't mean I don't understand why others don't. Should Bannerlord's multiplayer just be a refinement of Warband's? I'd argue no. I think it should also be an expansion of Warband's multiplayer, one that better appeals to the main single-player audience of Mount and Blade. Competitive or casual, if you only ever try to appeal to one player base or the other, you're only going to ever get one or the other. And while we understand this logically when I say it out loud, like no duh, right? It doesn't seem to have sunk in for many people, players and devs alike. While appealing to only one can work for games like CSGO or PUBG, Mount and Blade is a much smaller franchise compared to those games. It has a much smaller player base. So if you want a successful multiplayer, a populated multiplayer, and even if you only really care about a competitive multiplayer, you still need to appeal to a casual multiplayer experience. If not for having a casual experience for its own sake, then at least to have a pool from which you can entice players to try more competitive stuff. That is what is severely lacking in Bannerlord. Warband was also lacking this, but what brought myself and many other players to a more competitive multiplayer was mods. Nearly my whole clan, when I think about it. We played Full Invasion. That is PvE. Most of us were in fact garbage at PvP. We had to learn. We tried TDM and got our butts handed to us on a silver platter. We didn't suddenly dislike all multiplayer though, because there were other options while we got better, and that was key. Bannerlord has nothing like that. Picture this, you're a regular, single-playing, Rhagea-loving Chad, and you decide to actually try multiplayer to see what it's all about. You press the weird, scary-looking blue button for the first time ever, and you see the play tab. No problem, you click on that, and what's the first thing you see? Skirmish and Captain mode. Two modes specifically designed for competition, which have, who could have guessed, the most competitive and often salty players in the game. Since you've never played, you of course don't know that, and you get inundated with slurs or other insults, that issue is worth its own video, when you inevitably drag down your team. If you somehow survive that or are convinced to try again, you eventually find the actual server lobby and try TDM or Siege, since those are the least competitive and salty. But guess what? You try TDM and spawn surrounded by 20 enemies. Not fun. Then the server crashes and you try Siege. Siege is probably the most beginner-friendly mode, but you'll still likely end up fighting someone who will literally run circles around you as you try to hold up your shield. You can't do anything. You can't affect the match in any way. All you can do is die as quickly as you can spawn without any way to contribute to the game. Because for the new or casual player, there's nothing to do but die. It's not a great experience, in fact, it's a bad experience, a terrible experience. So you stop playing. It's a common enough story, and anyone who's played on multiplayer for any extended length of time sees it play out again and again. Ultimately, in order to have fun in such an environment, one needs the skill or the patience to develop the skill to get good at PvP. Because at the end of the day, spawning, dying immediately, and getting flamed by your own team isn't something that is particularly appealing to anyone. Single player skill does not transfer to PvP. This goes back to why a casual experience is so important. You need an experience not necessarily made for a single player person trying out multiplayer, but an experience designed so that they can still have fun even if they suck, even if their team is losing. And you need it done in such a way that hyper-competitive people can still have a good experience as well, without all the salt and rage. So, how do you do that? How do you bridge those two groups? Now, you don't necessarily have to bridge those two groups, but if you want, and it is my understanding that Tailworlds does in fact want a larger competitive scene, then you need more people playing online to begin with. They're not going to play if they're not having fun. So how do you get casual players to have fun while they learn PvP and eventually join the ranks of basement dwelling, Mountain Dew drinking, Cheetos dusted sweats? You have something a little more wacky, something a little more relaxed where people will go, hey, we lost, it was hilarious, let me tell you about it. You need a mode like cRPG. cRPG existed as a mod in Warband, and with the release of server files for closed testing, the mod devs are now finally allowed to make some progress. Playing on cRPG rewards you, regardless of how well you do, with a golden experience system for you to customize your character to your liking. Now, Bannerlord does have a bit of that. You can get some different looking armor just from playing. But in cRPG, if I want to dress up as a strange redhead with a bowl cut, wear luxurious pink dress, and whack people with a bow staff and throw rocks, I can do that. And that's hilarious. I can watch the sweatiest duel I've ever seen between the most amazing competitive duelists and throw a rock at one of them. That's awesome. As a casual player, you can have an effect on the game, if not by being super good at it, by simply enjoying yourself. You can do fun things, you can do stupid things, you can meme, you can dress up as naked Spartans with your friends, or camp with everyone going crossbow, or lead a doomed peasant revolt. You can pour all your stats into athletics and run as fast as a horse. Just a bunch of weird, wacky, wild, fun things that you don't have to be good at the game in order to enjoy. I repeat, you do not have to be good at the game to enjoy cRPG. And that's why it's so important. That's why it's what Bannerlord multiplayer should have been. I can put on whatever funny hat I want, it doesn't matter. I can run around with rocks and be an absolute menace, or I can be competitive, put on some good armor, min-max my stats, and enjoy myself that way. I'm not restricted in any way like I am in regular Bannerlord. I, as the player, have choice. There's something for everyone, and they're all equally valid ways of playing, and they're all playing together. The players decide the kind of game they want. It gives the player choice, and lets them feel, no matter how good at the game they are, that they're still an active participant. You may be thinking that everything I've described could make the mod super unbalanced. That's the point. The point isn't to have hyper-competitive, perfectly balanced teams all wearing the same armor and wielding the same weapons. The point is to have a fun time. It's about the player, not the game. So if you've tried multiplayer and didn't like the sweat, or you haven't ever tried it because it wasn't really for you, try it. Come play. But not regular Bannerlord multiplayer. Come try out cRPG. That's all for this video. I tried to keep it from turning into a full-on rant, but I'm not sure if I've succeeded. You tell me. Also, if you want to try any of this out in a group, join our clan. I'll pin a link to our Discord below. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, I hope you have a good day. Bye!